Ugh, Rob, so it looks like the register from last night is short by $15.
Sorry, that was me. The Wilson kids returned a bunch of videos last night. They didn't have the late fees. They said they'd get us back next time.
I don't trust those kids.
Why not? Their mom's some bigwig in the State Department, and their dad runs IBM.
Have you met their parents? I'm not even sure they're really kids. The older one looks like he's 30.
He does have a pretty nice mustache.
Welcome to Rewind Video. I'm Bob.
I'm Rob.
And we love movies. Good ones, bad ones, old ones, new ones, blockbuster films, B-movies, and everything in between. So, Rob, I've got a confession to make. So there are days when I'm working my shift. It's late, minutes before close, and a customer will come in asking for a recommendation. Have you had this happen?
If it's a couple minutes before close, I usually just tell them we are closed.
Well, you're a better man than I am, but not by much. You know, sometimes they'll ask things like, do you have any new releases? Or,
It's a dumb question.
Yeah, I'm looking for a horror movie, but nothing scary.
Another dumb question.
Yeah, so I'm usually pretty keen on pointing our customers to something that they'll love, as I know you are, particularly the staff recommendation shelf. But on these nights, I usually have one thing that I say to these people. I say, sorry, I don't actually watch movies. I just work here. It's a lie.
Yeah.
It's a lie. But, you know,
working here is a lie for the most part,
Right.
you know, because generally you have to answer questions that you don't want to and talk to people you don't want to. And
it's true.
Our whole life is a lie.
It's, yeah, it's more truth than that than I think most people know. But in reality, on nights like this, I just don't have it in me. So naturally, this ties into our discussion for this evening here at Rewind Video. You and I are in charge of the staff recommendation shelf. Each time we rotate in new movies that are deserving of our customers' attention, we adhere to a theme. And this week's theme is deception.
That's not what you told me.
Well, you know, the deception that we're going to talk about tonight, I think, is a little bit better, or at least better executed than mine is when I'm trying to shoo people out of the store.
When you're lying to the customers.
Right.
Yeah, that's just a deflection. You know?
It is.
That's,
Yeah.
And even just like, you know, being nice and offering good customer service at times can be a deception because, you know, you don't really want to do it, but it's your job, and so you pretend.
Well, I think it's a two-way street in a store like ours. You know, I'll give you a good recommendation.
Are the customers pretending they want to be here too?
Well, I would at least hope that they'd come in, show a little respect, and at least arrive 15 minutes before the doors lock.
And truth be told, though, you know, I have some respect for those last minute movie grabbers. It's just that you have to understand where you are. You know, if you're coming in with 5 minutes to go, like you have to make a decision.
Yeah, these are the people that I imagine just don't have Netflix and can't do any chilling without a movie from our store.
Yes.
But you know, whatever. I'm not here to judge how people watch the films that they rent from Rewind Video.
that could get ugly real quick.
Oh yeah. So deception is our theme, and this might have been your experience too. But I was struck by how many movies fit this theme. There's a lot of lying in film, don't you think?
Yeah, people are not honest in movies, and I think that's where a lot of the tension comes from.
Makes for a good story.
Yeah.
It sure does.
Imagine what a movie would be like if everybody was honest.
Probably not something that I would jump toward.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do have 6 films that rise to the top, I would say, and you know, I happened to pick a couple that involve some debuts for an actor, debuts for a director. We'll get into that a little bit, but I also found myself gravitating towards some older stuff. I think my newest movie this week is 96.
Are movies from the 90s old now? Is that where we're at?
It might be.
Jeez. Okay.
Well, I don't have a lot else to say other than these are all worthy of a watch, and we should just get right into your first pick.
We're not lying about that.
No, we're not lying. That's the truth.
We genuinely
Honest
recommend
truth.
these movies.
Yes. So why don't you get us started?
Okay, I'm going to start us off in the year 2023, a recent movie. It is called How to Blow Up a Pipeline. This is in the do-it-yourself section of the store. Here's the back of the box. A crew of young environmental activists execute a daring mission to sabotage an oil pipeline. That's what happens in the movie.
That is what happens in the movie.
Tagline, this is an act of self-defense. Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah,
it's fine.
It's fine. Yeah.
This is about a group of activists who put together a group and a plan to blow up this pipeline in West Texas. Directed and co-written by Daniel Goldhaber, and he has a couple features to his name. But his next movie is, I found this pretty interesting. It's a Lego-sequel / reboot of Faces of Death. Are you familiar with Faces of Death?
I've never watched a Faces of Death movie, but boy, did they have a reputation when I was in like junior high and late elementary school.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that I think might have been on in the somewhere in my life but I definitely didn't watch it.
Yeah.
I'm not interested. I mean, it was like pieced together. It was like a lot of fake stuff that was pieced together into this narrative, but it was also a lot of like documentary footage of people like actually like people getting killed or whatever. But yeah, I think I'm curious where this is going. I think it's along the lines of like a snuff film underground type thing, as in like the real Faces of Death was actually a real movie or something.
Oh, I see.
But that could be interesting.
Yeah.
But How to Blow Up a Pipeline is a low budget heist thriller, and the issues and themes that it's dealing with are not typical of a heist movie. You know, this movie's about climate change and activism versus terrorism, the politics of change, the helplessness against the corporate powers that run the energy infrastructure. But it does have the structure of a heist movie.
Right.
We do get like the assembling the team scenes, and they're scattered throughout the movie. But what I love about it is how it's really done at the character level. We see it from all these characters' perspectives, and it's not like Danny Ocean going around offering people a big stack of cash, or that iron worker from Steel assembling a team. Like, it's like we see it from the characters, and we see how they're driven to this point where they kind of see their only way out as doing what they do. This is the only response that makes sense to them. And so each character gets their own point of view, and they're not hired. They're not offered a big payday. They're there because they feel like they have to, and we get that as the audience.
We do. I enjoyed the introductions to each character, but they sure did insert them right at very pivotal points in the overarching narrative, and so, I won't say annoying, but it was a thing.
Yeah, I mean, it was a way to drag out, not drag out, but like to kind of like keep a plot point from exploding in front of you, and in certain ways. I was wondering as I was watching this if I have the disposition to get involved in a scheme like this, because so much of this is about discretion, which I do excel at. I can be very discreet when necessary, but you also have to know exactly who to trust.
Yes,
either that or you have to be very lucky.
Yes.
So I think I'm a pretty skeptical person. I'm a pretty critical person, but I think when it comes down to it, I think I'm probably like a little bit too trusting. And I think that would be my weak point. I think that's how the feds would get me. I'd get mixed up with the wrong person, and it turns out it's an FBI agent or something. But how do you know who to trust in this situation?
That's a good question. They don't spend a lot of time on that. It seems very, basic in the way that these characters have assembled one another. I mean, there's word of mouth, and then there's also they have a text chain going, and beyond that, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of research into like who's on this team.
Right. It's also because they don't even really know each other.
No.
At the beginning of the movie, they're like, "Hey, nice to meet you."
Yeah.
And also like it's very temporary. It's not like they haven't created like a club that that's gonna like keep going and do other things. They got together, they did this one thing, and now they're done. They probably don't even know each other's last names.
Oh, probably not.
So yeah, I don't know. It's just it's a miracle that you could even get involved in something like this. I guess that's why this stuff doesn't generally happen that often.
Yeah.
So how does one blow up a pipeline?
And what pipeline are we talking about? We're talking about an oil pipeline.
Oil pipeline.
Yeah.
So how does one do that? As you might imagine, it involves a fair bit of deception. But first of all, deception, like we were just talking about, within the group is always a possibility. And that's, in an operation like this, you don't know who to trust. Anyone is a possible informant or a mole. And for a while, as the audience, it seems like that might be what's going on here. We get to see some information about what something somebody in the group is doing. But it turns out one of the best ways to blow up a pipeline is to deceive the cops into thinking that they have deceived you.
Yes, yes.
So there's a whole lot of deception going on here on the part of everybody.
I didn't think they were going to succeed.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that I was curious about as I was watching. I was like, boy. And it has a lot to do with what you said. It's just like these ragtag group of people get together and, it doesn't seem like they're going to cross all their T's.
They're going to get to the end and be like, "Oh fuck, yeah, we actually don't know what we're doing."
right.
And there's a couple of moments when you think like, "Oh, well, that doesn't work."
Yeah.
But also like, it seems like they made it a little bit more complicated than it has to be.
Yeah.
just like the lifting the oil drum up when they're like ratcheting it up with those straps. It's like, well, there's a lot of places you could have put it where you didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but they have their plans.
They do.
The most popular review of this on Letterboxd matches my 4-star review, and it's by the user Tyler, and he says, "I hope my rating doesn't get me put on a government watch list."
It's a fair concern.
Yeah. 38% of Letterboxd users agree with me and Tyler and give it 4 stars, and overall it's got a 3.8.
Interesting. So I know that this was based on a nonfiction book. Mm-hmm. I'm curious, do you know if something like this actually took place? I didn't read the book.
No.
Okay.
This is completely a made-up story. The book doesn't have any narrative whatsoever, as far as I know. I haven't read it.
Okay.
But from what I understand, it's basically just kind of like an essay about like why, like the philosophy of like, should you do this?
I see.
I don't think it's not actually like a how-to book of how to like blow up a pipeline or to put together a group to do it. I think it's more just like an extended book-long essay about the value of blowing up infrastructure and that kind of thing.
I see. So
So if you rent this at the store, that keeps you from having to search it on the internet. So I do recommend you do that.
Right.
So yeah, this is a gripping thriller. It's about some difficult subjects, and I'm putting it up on the shelf this week for deception.
I couldn't help but to think as I was watching this that there's something in common with people who would do this as there is with a subject we talked about in a recent episode, which is atheists. They care so much about the thing that they believe in that, I don't know, they live a little bit in the extremes as it relates to just like not willing to, you can't reason with these people.
Right.
And in this case, they're doing something that I personally wouldn't do and don't agree with myself, but yeah, it's interesting to get a glimpse into that world.
They have a conversation with somebody earlier in the movie, with somebody at one of their schools or something, who is basically saying, or putting together like a disinvestment group or whatever, like a policy of the school.
Yeah.
And one of our main characters is saying like, well, that's not direct action. Like we need to do something that like really makes a difference. Like this long-term thinking is no good. We need to like do something immediate. But also like, if you think about it, like blowing up the pipeline is like, that doesn't solve the problem either. You know what I mean? Like you didn't solve global warming.
No.
Like that's long-term thinking too. It's just a different, I guess, it feels better, but it doesn't mean it is better.
No, I agree.
So I don't know. It's an interesting question. This movie doesn't really get into those questions. I think it kind of forces the audience to grapple with it itself, which I'm okay with.
Like that.
This movie's about telling the story of how these people went through the plan.
Right.
So yeah, I'm a big fan of this movie.
It was a worthy watch. I was pretty engrossed.
Yeah.
Well, fine pick. Not one that I would have picked up on my own, but I'm glad I had a chance to watch it. Yeah, I don't know. Something about environmental activism movies don't draw me in. Yeah. But this...
You recently brought one to the table.
Yeah, I did. I did. But in that case, the first time I watched it, I didn't realize that First Reformed was as much of an environmental activism movie as it is.
I mean, don't even realize it until like 30 minutes into the movie.
Right. But yeah, this one was good. So maybe I'm turning myself off from a genre that I would enjoy more if I give it a shot. So yeah, fun one. All right, my first pick is Primal Fear. This is a movie from 1996. It comes from the Law and Order Special Video Cassette Unit section of the store. Back of the box synopsis. An arrogant, high-powered attorney takes on the case of a poor altar boy found running away from the scene of a grisly murder of the bishop who has taken him in. The case gets a lot more complex when the accused reveals that there may or may not have been a third person in the room. The intensity builds when a surprise twist alters everyone's perception of the crime. Tagline, sooner or later, a man who wears two faces forgets which one is real. Not a bad tagline.
Does he forget?
Good question.
I thought he had a handle on it.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't know, this might invite you to pick up this box. This is probably my best tagline of the night. It only goes downhill from here. Yeah. Now I've considered bringing this to the table or to the shelf for a while now. In fact, it was in the on deck circle for our religion theme. I thought about it for the courtroom theme, but I think it fits best for Deception.
That's what this movie is fundamentally about.
Yes, absolutely. So this was Edward Norton's film debut. He beat out over 2,000 actors who were competing for this role. It was seen at the time as a career-making part for whoever was cast in the role of what's his name? Aaron Stampler.
And it was.
It very much was for Edward Norton. Leonardo DiCaprio was the first choice here. He ultimately turned it down after What's Eating Gilbert Grape. Matt Damon desperately wanted this part. Will Wheaton was also a finalist, but yeah, ultimately went to Norton. And yeah, the part that Norton plays is that of Aaron Stampler, a young altar boy accused of brutally murdering an archbishop. So Norton is also flanked by a pretty A-list cast. There's Richard Gere playing the hotshot attorney defending him. Laura Linney is here. She's the district attorney. Frances McDormand, Andre Brower, Mara Tierney, and John Mahoney. So cast is pretty stellar.
Typically stacked 90s cast.
Yeah, absolutely. This does have the vibe of an episode of Law and Order, like an extended episode of Law and Order. And that makes sense when you factor in the director, Gregory Hobbit. He doesn't have a lot of recognizable features to his name other than the movie Fracture, which was also good. Anthony Hopkins and Ryan Gosling were in that. That was really good. Yeah. He did direct a lot of police procedural TV dramas. So Hill Street Blues, NYPD Blue, LA Law, several others.
Perfect.
Yeah. He's the right guy for the job.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is an interesting watch. It's the type of 90s courtroom crime thriller that made lawyers into detectives. There were these like quick-witted, heroic types who weren't afraid to get their hands dirty to try a case.
We should get so many more of these movies now.
I know, and we don't. They've largely disappeared, but there's something really entertaining about them. So it's fun to go back to. This movie's no exception. Why did I choose this, though? So deception plays a big role in this movie, as you mentioned. I don't want to get into spoilers, but I think we can. There's still a lot to talk about without even giving away some of the big stuff. Easy to understand how a movie with this sort of plot might be dealing in manipulation of the truth. There's a component of multiple personality disorder that's woven into this. That's revealed in like the second act of the movie. But side note, we also get what is becoming one of my favorite movie tropes. We've talked about it on the show, which is the guy sitting at the bar by himself, and the bartender has entrusted the customer with an entire bottle of booze that he just gets to pour for himself. Yeah.
I believe that in an old West movie. Yeah. But like by the 90s, that doesn't really happen.
I don't feel like it happens ever. But
I think they didn't do it in the Old West.
Well, maybe in the Old West, but I want to live in a world where this occurs, and I don't know what I have to do in order.
I mean, I think it's called bottle service.
Is
at
it?
an
maybe.
expensive club?
Maybe, yeah. That's probably it.
Yeah, I mean, that was a question I had for some movie, but it's like, how do they charge you for that? Do they like measure where the bottle is and they give it to you, and then measure it when you give it back?
Yeah. It's ridiculous. Incidentally, the bar scenes in this movie are phenomenal. I would drink in any of these bars. This movie takes place in Chicago, and they all have like a neighborhoody vibe, as some Chicago bars can. But back to deception. What I do appreciate here is that the victim of said deception is certainly the audience, but most specifically the lawyer who is representing the accused. And yeah, so Edward Norton is great. Yes, it was indeed career making for him. He went on from this to be in People versus Larry Flint, American History X, Rounders, and then right after that, Fight Club. So, his trajectory was steep.
Yeah.
But Richard Gere is also good. It's strange. He all but vanished from the film scene. I mean, he's been in a couple things, but after the 90s, it was like he just fell off the face of the earth.
Yeah, and like, I don't know. He's just one of those guys that I know he was a star. I know he was in a bunch of movies, but like not a lot of stuff that I'm familiar with.
No, yeah. It's peculiar because he was
like the stereotypical 80s movie hunk.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, he was an American Gigolo.
That's true, yeah.
But he was good. Laura Linney, also great. I'd also like to just recognize the presence of the word fuck in this movie because it's written into the script really well and used appropriately. You get it quite a bit, but every time it's deserving. So
shout out to the F word.
Shout out to the F word.
Rewind Video.
Yeah. So again, as is the case with movies that deal in deception, there's a bit about this movie that's better left unsaid for those who haven't seen it. But I'll say that the payoff is worth the runtime. Primal Fear averages a 3.9 on Letterboxd. A majority of users agree with my 4-star rating, including the user Ella, who said Edward Norton deserved the Oscar. And this was one of 3 Academy Award nominations for Edward Norton. He didn't win any of them, but there's a real case to be made for why he should have taken home the trophy for Best Supporting Actor in this.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty rare to get a nomination on your first movie, let alone win.
And he is young in this movie, and but already demonstrating a lot of the chops that obviously got him the parts that he later landed.
Yeah, it's hard. He's a hard guy to pin down now. Like, where is his career now? Like, what does he do? Like, what is he really doing?
Well, the last thing I saw him in was Glass Onion.
Yeah.
And before
he's doing
that...
a lot. I mean, I don't know. He seemed like he was going to be this huge star, but it's almost like, where does he go from here? I also know that he's kind of a pain in the ass to work with.
Yeah, he's got a reputation.
So, like, I don't know. What kind of a thing do you put him in now? I'm not really sure where he fits.
I don't know.
He's obviously a great actor.
Yeah. I know he's done a lot of voiceover for, like, nature documentaries, like Planet Earth 2, maybe.
Yeah.
But in any case, he's good. This movie's good, and I'm throwing it on the shelf. I think it's a worthwhile trip back to 1996.
Yeah, this was like you didn't get a lot of, like, this was back in the day when, first of all, the internet wasn't really around, and so, like, you could keep the ending of a movie secret.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is back in the day when there was a movie that had a big twist ending.
Yeah.
It was like a big deal because they only came around a couple times a year, maybe.
Yes.
And I remember this very specifically. It was like, oh, the ending. You gotta be around for the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a fun one.
Yeah. I'm eager to hear what our customers think. I would love to talk about the ending because I have my own problems with it. Yeah. But
it came out 30 years ago. We can probably talk about it.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, we can. For anyone who wants to dip out for a couple of seconds, we'll just leave it. Give you a chance. But obviously, he doesn't have multiple personality disorder. He was acting the whole time, and acting. Yes. And yeah, I think I feel like he could have talked his way out of the slip up that Richard Gere picks up on. That
right,
because Richard Gere realizes that he remembers what his alter ego did to the DA, and I think he could have just said something like, "Oh yeah, well, I mean, they told me what happened."
Yeah. There's ways. Plus, like, I don't know. It's this deals with with a lawyer fighting with like I'm representing a guilty person and whatever. But like, first of all, like guilty people deserve representation too, and like that's your job. And like I don't know, it shouldn't matter that much that like you shouldn't have to lie to your lawyer, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that Richard Gere pounced on his case, and he was like, I don't need to know anything. I want to represent this guy. I'm going to do it for free. Like I've been waiting for something like this, and that struck me as a little bit odd, but whatever.
But then he was like, now I don't know what I should be doing.
Yeah.
A little strange.
Yeah, a little strange.
All right, well, I'm going to keep us in the 90s.
Great.
1993. Ooh. The movie is Red Rock West.
Love that you picked this.
This is filed under Don't Call It a Comeback. Back of the box. When a promised, this is a wordy back of the box. I'm going to try to read this without fumbling over it. When a promised job for Texan Michael fails to materialize in Wyoming, Mike is mistaken by Wayne to be the hitman he hired to kill his unfaithful wife, Suzanne. Mike takes full advantage of the situation, collects the money, and runs. During his getaway, things go wrong and soon get worse when he runs into the real hitman, Lyle. Tagline, where nothing is as it seems. Pretty lackluster, I'd say. The back of the box is junky. The tagline is bland.
Yeah.
But the movie's not. The movie's fun.
The movie is a blast.
Yeah, the movie's a blast. This is a Western neo-noir starring Nick Cage, Lara Flynn Boyle, Dennis Hopper, and J.T. Walsh.
A lot of David Lynch alum.
Yeah. Before the recent Blu-ray release, this was almost impossible to get.
Yeah.
Either on streaming or in a physical copy. Some of that may be due to the strange release strategy or the lack of a release strategy. The studio thought this movie was essentially unreleasable. They did some test screenings, and they're like, "Oh, people hate this," and they're like, "Well, it's kind of a hard sell, like this, like neo noir western. Like people aren't really getting it. Maybe if we like pretend it's an indie movie." And so they try to get it into the Sundance Festival, and Sundance is like, "It's not really our thing." And so the movie or the studio is just like, okay, like I guess we're not going to release this movie in America. And so they released it in Europe. And by the time some distributing company, some guy saw it and decided he wanted to like release the movie at his movie theaters, the movie had already been on HBO.
Oh, really?
It had been kind of a hit, not a hit, but it made some money in Europe. It made like a couple $1 million. And it was about to come out in VHS. And this guy was like, well, he's like, I can like put it in my theaters and release it in the theaters. So this was like 94. So this movie came out in 93. It never played in America until 94 for like a month. It played like 3 or 4 weeks in like 3 cities. So like that's what this movie is like almost non-existent. I don't even know how I saw it. I saw it in the 90s at some point, I think on VHS.
I remember renting this from the local video store, and I think we even taped it off of HBO. So, yeah, this was on regular rotation in my house.
Nice. But yeah, it basically disappeared for a couple of decades if you didn't have one of those VHS tapes.
Yeah.
But there's kind of a depth of flavor to Red Rock West. It's got a Western motif. The story is straight out of a noir, but it's also kind of funny.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a comedy, but it's got some humor to it. It's filled with twists and turns, and like it kind of seems like the plot can go anywhere at any moment. But it's also kind of spelled out for us. Like if you think about it for 2 seconds and figure out what kind of story we're being told, like you know kind of where it's going.
Yeah.
You know, based on how it's structured. The question you're constantly asking yourself as you watch this movie is like, why doesn't Nick Cage just get the fuck out of the situation as fast as he possibly can?
Yeah.
You know, the story keeps bringing him back to Red Rock over and over when he thinks he's getting out of town. But he's also like constantly passing up opportunities to get out of the situation before it gets worse.
Yes.
You know, some of that is because he needs money. You know, he has the chance to walk away with $5,000 scot-free and with $10,000 and just disappear. And like both times he's just like, no, I'm going to keep like fucking around with the situation. He's also like honest to a fault. Not just because he doesn't want to just straight up steal this money, which he should.
Yeah.
But he also refuses to lie about his knee injury at the beginning to get a job. He's down to his last $5 and he doesn't steal the money out of the till at the gas station. He won't even take his friend's money. Like, honestly.
Yeah, come on.
Who's offering it? So, like, this guy is, like, super honest, like, doesn't want to do anything he's not supposed to do. But then he makes one brief moment of deception. And his life just goes completely off the map because of that.
Nicolas Cage is the perfect guy for this part.
Yeah, especially this era of
Nicolas Cage. And, you know, I know we talked recently about, like, would you cast Nicolas Cage in a movie if you were making it? And I truly can't think of somebody better for this role. And it has a lot to do with, like, that kind of aloof, honest guy who means well, and he does it so well.
He's like a Pixies song, you know. He's quiet, loud, quiet.
Yes.
But yeah, this is a quiet performance for the most part from him.
Yeah.
But you know, it's loud when it needs to be.
Yeah.
So he has this one brief moment of deception that completely throws him off the deep end. And even then, it's because he's desperate. Like, he probably is about out of gas. He has no money. He's at this bar, and this guy has a job, you know, and it seems like a job that the person who it belonged to isn't coming for it, you know? So even then, it's like, yeah, this is like a dishonest thing, but this is about as honest as you can get when you're being dishonest. And even then, it completely fucks him.
Yes.
So, like, and even in that one moment, like, as soon as he realizes he's in a weird situation, he can't get out of it. It's too late, you know. He can't just be like, "Oh, sorry, I'm not the guy who's here to kill your wife," you know. Because how do you walk out of that room? You have to take the money, no matter what.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But you know, once this deception starts in this story, it's just like one deception after another.
It snowballs fast.
Lara Flynn Boyle is deceiving her husband. She's deceiving Nick Cage. You know, J.T. Walsh is deceiving his wife. He's deceiving his coworkers. Apparently, he deceived an entire county who elected him sheriff. So, yeah, this movie is just filled with deceptions all over the place. 31% of Letterboxd users align with my 4-star rating, including Franco Vidal, who says in his 4-star review, "Happy to put Red Rock West in the pantheon of movies I only knew from the Kick-Ass poster and were as good as the poster advertised."
It's a good poster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you've seen this poster and haven't seen the movie because it's hard to get, because you know the poster is obviously very popular. It's getting a spot up on the staff recommendation shelf this week for Deception. It's a overlooked '90s classic, I think.
A worthy pick. I am always reminded when I see J.T. Walsh in a movie how much fun he is when he's in the right part. And this is a case of that. He's great here.
He's one of those guys that, I mean, you can say this about so many character actors, but he's just so perfect at what he is.
Yes.
He's so good at just being J.T. Walsh.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like in a lot of movies where he shows up, you can instantly look at him and think, I can't trust this guy.
He looks like the guy who owns a bar and is the sheriff and is actually somebody who stole a bunch of money. Yeah. So, yeah, he's great.
Well, this was a good one. I was excited to go back. It had been decades since I've seen this. So
me too.
Love that you picked it. All right, Rob, it's time for my second pick in our deception theme.
Wonderful.
I'm going further back, and I'm going to 1986. My movie is Aliens. So the back of the box synopsis.
With a Z?
Yeah, obviously. Back of the box synopsis here. When Ripley's life pod is found by a salvage crew over 50 years later, she finds that terraformers are on the very planet they found the alien species. When the company sends a family of colonists out to investigate her story, all contact is lost with the planet and colonists. They enlist Ripley and the Colonial Marines to return and search for answers. Tagline, this time it's war, which is a disappointing tagline.
Yeah, there's no war.
No, there's not war. I mean, there's a lot more action in this than there was the first, but
slightly more war-ish than the first movie.
Yeah, this time it's warlike, maybe. They could have done better. All right, so I'm going to get a few things out of the way before we get into this one. I love the Alien franchise. It's my favorite film franchise. This is my favorite movie in that film franchise. I like it more than Alien. It's a 5-star movie for me. I have no doubt that most of our customers have seen this, and I have no problem telling them to watch it again. I've seen it countless times. I can't wait to rewatch it, especially now that it's gotten a beautiful 4K update. So now's the time. It looks pristine. So I don't even really have a lot of notes here because I could talk about this movie for the length of several episodes, but let's get some vital statistics out of the way first. This is a James Cameron movie. To this day, I think it's his best film. Better than T2, in my opinion.
Wow.
Yeah. On the casting front,
better than Avatar: Way of Water, in your opinion?
It's real close, but yes. On the casting front, we've got Sigourney Weaver, Bill Paxton, Michael Biehn, Lance Henriksen, and Paul Reiser. So why did I choose this movie? I think this movie is perfect. But why did I choose it for the deception theme? Because more than this being an action film, more than this even being a sci-fi film, it's a film about deception. As we know, Ripley is summoned back to the movie to the planet from the first movie, LV-426, because contact with the settlers has been lost. There's suspicion of an alien outbreak, and the reason Ripley decides to go is because she's been told that this mission is about wiping out whatever alien presence still exists on the planet. And this is a lie.
It's a lie, complete lie.
Yeah. We quickly learn that Paul Reiser's character, who's the corporate guy representing the company that foots the bill for these settlements, has some ulterior motives.
Is it the same company from the first movie?
Yeah, Wayland Yutani. Yes. Yeah, so he's got ulterior motives. He wants to bring the aliens back. He and the company that employs him see them as a military asset. So even after Ripley and the soldiers on this mission realize what's going on, Reiser doubles down and tries to impregnate Ripley and Newt with alien embryos before their trip back home. So he's all in and, like committed to his deception.
Yeah.
And, he plays a great smarmy scumbag. He's devious, and he's the right guy for this part. I don't know,
he's most well known as a sitcom actor.
Mad About You.
But
yes.
he's really good in this.
Mm-hmm. So, for as good as Paul Reiser is, this isn't his movie. It's Sigourney Weaver's. And while the first movie established her as a fucking badass survivor, we really get to see her character take shape in Aliens. She's confident, she's a leader, she's a mother figure, she's angry. Add it all up, and you get a character in Ellen Ripley who can take on threats from two fronts. So you've got the mob of angry xenomorphs who are hunting the soldiers. You've got Paul Reiser's character who's trying to sabotage the mission from within. And this, in my opinion, is what makes it such a great movie. Ellen Ripley is an amazing character. And the first film is a masterpiece for giving us this world that these stories can occupy. But I believe that the understanding of Ripley's character that we all have today is a product of what we remember from her role in Aliens, because that's where it feels like it all came together. At least for me.
You're probably right about that. I think there's definitely some truth to that.
Yeah. Everyone else is really good too. Lance Henriksen as Bishop, the robot, is awesome. He's my favorite of all the robots that we get in the Alien franchise. Bill Paxton is always fucking great. He gives us a lot of great lines, a little bit of comic relief. Michael Biehn is the guy who assumes leadership over the military operation is phenomenal. I wanted to be Michael Biehn when I was a kid. So yeah, I think you get a phenomenal film. The deception is fundamental to what unfolds. It's just a banger. This one never gets old for me. But I know that you and I don't necessarily see eye to eye on this. And I'm so curious because as I mentioned, this is a 5-star movie for me. I know that you have it in the 3-star category.
I do.
And I'm not trying to tell you you're wrong, but I just want to understand what someone who doesn't think quite as highly of this.
This is one of those movies that is in a category with like what movies? Like Raising Arizona is one. Michael Clayton is one. There's a bunch of movies that seem like they're movies that I should love, right? Based on my tastes, based on the kinds of movies they are. just based on a lot of things. These are movies that should be at least 4 stars, if not 5, by my estimation. And for some reason, Aliens is one of those movies. There's something that like, something about it. I've seen this movie a bunch of times over the years, and something about it I check out at some point.
Okay.
I honestly think the kid has something to do with it. Like children in movies, I'm not generally a fan of. They have to be like exceptional for me to just like not hate. I think maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. I can't explain it. That's what like the fundamental characteristic of all these movies is. Like they seem like something I should like, and I can't figure out why I don't love them.
So when you say all these movies, are you talking about like this, the Michael Clayton's Raising Arizona's, or the Alien franchise?
No, like those movies. Like there's a whole bunch of movies that I feel like I should like a lot more than I do, and every time I watch it, I'm like, I always think like, oh, like I must have been tired. Or I must have something about I wasn't in the right mood. But there's all these movies that like every time I go back, I get that feeling.
Interesting.
And this is one of them. And I really can't explain it. But like at a certain point, I'm like, yeah, I got it. Like, yeah, I know what's happening.
Well, as I said, I'm not here to try to convince you that your rating should be higher, but it does beg the question.
I'm saying it should be higher. You know what I mean? Like that's what I'm saying. Like there's something it doesn't make sense to me either.
So I don't want to put a lot of pressure on you, but among the Alien movies, where does this rank? I mean, what would you put above it? I'm curious.
I'm not. This is a 3-star movie.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying it's a bad movie.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying it's, oh, I hate this movie, but this is one of those movies that like everybody I know gives it 5 stars, and I understand why.
Yeah.
But for some reason, just like I don't see it.
I mean, it's a big deviation from the first one.
Yeah, I love the first one. I don't have it like I don't really know this series all that well. Alien 3 is fine, It's probably not as good as Aliens, but I don't really know the later movies all that well.
Yeah. Alien 3 went through some real production hell. I have found there's like a feature-length documentary that accompanies Alien 3 as a special feature on some of the more recent DVD and Blu-ray releases, and that's as fascinating a watch as the movie itself, because all of the shit that the studios did to manipulate that movie and change it from what David Fincher wanted it to be is bewildering.
By all accounts, it was a nightmare experience for Fincher.
Yeah.
The movie is not a complete disaster. It's watchable.
Yeah, it's watchable.
But it's not good.
No, I wouldn't say it's I would put that at a 3-star rating for me. It does. It's had the franchise has had a rocky trajectory from there. Fortunately, we are getting another sequel in short order from I can't remember the director's name, but Fede Alvarez, who I think the franchise is in good hands with him.
I feel about the Alien franchise kind of how I feel about the Terminator franchise.
Yeah,
where like I am super happy when a good one comes around that I like.
Yeah.
And I don't care if they make bad movies.
Yeah.
Just keep making them. Eventually you're going to make something good.
Yeah,
keep doing
absolutely. Yeah.
Predator is the same way. Just keep doing it. Why not?
The Alien franchise has been notorious for giving young directors a shot at making sequels. Jeunet did one. David Fincher was very young when he took on the same with James Cameron.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what happens next, but I'm ready for more, and I'm in love with this movie. The first movie, for anyone who's curious, is just a hair below this for me. Yeah. But I love the character of Ellen Ripley, and as I mentioned in what I said moments ago, I feel like this is where we really get to learn who she is. So
great cat in this movie too.
Yeah. I mean, it's it's full of reasons to love it. This averages a 4.2 on Letterboxd. 26% of users are aligned with my 5-star review, including Tim Kopp, who said, did the math, and I do believe on a purely technical level, Get Away From Her, You Bitch does in fact pass the Bechdel test. So Aliens is going on the shelf. Watch it. It looks better than it ever has, and I fucking love this film.
That's a great moment. There's a lot of great moments here. There's a lot. There's, you know, even
Game Over, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It doesn't come together as a complete bouillabaisse to me. You know what I'm saying?
I understand.
Okay. Speaking of large boats, I'm taking us to the year of 1974. The movie is Death Cruise.
Death Cruise.
Death Cruise.
Not to be confused with Death Ship.
No, this is Death Cruise.
Death Cruise.
There's been a couple Death Ships, I believe.
Yeah.
Death Cruise. This is filed under maritime law. Here's the back of the box.
Yeah.
Did you have something to say about maritime law?
No, I don't.
Are you an expert?
I started watching Death Ship, and I thought, I don't think this is it. Yeah.
There's no deception in
from a
this Death
similar
Ship.
era, and I thought, I think I got this wrong. So I went back and I had to watch Death Cruise. That's the only reason I mentioned it. Yeah.
Fair enough. Here's the back of the box of Death Cruise. Several couples are notified that they have won an ocean cruise, but they actually have been lured onto a ship so that they can be murdered.
That's how it happens.
There is no tagline for this movie because it's a TV movie.
Oh, I didn't know it was a TV movie.
TV movie. This was the ABC Movie of the Week for October 30th, 1974.
Fitting.
This is not the first TV movie to grace the staff recommendation shelf.
Salem's Lot.
Well, that's true. That was a TV movie miniseries. But this is also not the first ABC Movie of the Week to get a spot on the shelf.
You're kidding.
I am not kidding. Do you know what the other one was?
No.
You brought it.
What?
Steven Spielberg's Duel was the ABC Movie of the Week in November, like November 13th, 1971.
I forgot about that, yeah.
So that eventually did get a theatrical release.
Okay.
At least internationally.
Yeah.
But Death Cruise, as far as I can tell, never played in a theater.
What a shame.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but I like the appeal of an old school TV movie now and again.
Yeah.
First of all, it's hard to beat a 75-minute runtime.
Oh, brisk. Yeah, you love the short ones.
Yeah, I love the short ones.
Yeah.
It's also refreshingly low stakes.
Yeah.
There's just a feel about it where it's like, it doesn't. I could fold laundry while I'm watching this. There's a casual nature about them.
Yeah.
To go along with the casual 70s fashion. The pace is dictated by commercial breaks, which, you know, again, it was the 70s, so everything's kind of lackadaisical anyway. There's a different pace to things from, what was that, 50 fucking years ago? I'm a big fan of Columbo.
Yeah, I know this.
And that was basically 75-minute episodes. They're essentially short movies. And the structure of a Columbo episode is a little bit different than what we get here. In the Columbo, the audience knows who the killer is. You see it in the opening. And Columbo also figures it out pretty quick. It's just a matter of like Columbo tricking the killer into admitting it. You know?
Yeah.
But like this is very much a murder mystery. But you get a lot of the Columbo-ish vibes here, you know? They're trying to figure out a crime. It's a TV show. They're not in a big hurry. You know?
Yeah.
I did have to wonder, like, what was the contest scene like in the 70s?
Yeah, it's a good question because I will say this. Watching this reminded me of an experience that I had with I had a bank at some point.
At some point.
I used a bank. And on the back of my debit card, there were two phone numbers. And I was trying to call one of them for support. And I called the wrong one. The one that was that I chose took me to a line where they were basically saying, "You want a cruise." And
what?
Yeah, I'm not kidding. And I was like, I just need support with my bank
It seems
card.
like did they lose control of that phone number or what happened?
No, I think it was like
somebody paid.
Maybe. I don't know if it was a partnership with the bank and this cruise line, but it was like, yeah, we're just going to give it to you. You know,
was the bank located on a boat that disappeared one day?
I wish I remembered. It was North Carolina. Don't open a bank account in North Carolina. But yeah, it was very dubious, and it was the first thing I thought of when this plot point was revealed in Death Cruise.
It was a float-by-night bank.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but all these people are like really eager to claim this prize in a contest that none of them entered. You know, they're like, oh well, I guess we entered it. Like how many contests? Because everyone was just like, I just figured I entered it. It was like, are you just like entering contests left and right? Like, where would you do that? How did that work back then?
Yeah. It's strange. It almost has like a publisher's clearinghouse vibe to it, where it's like you used to get those things in the mail offering to win millions of dollars.
I mean, I guess that stuff definitely exists still, though. Yeah. All that stuff is just email based and whatever.
Sure.
But I guess like back in the day, it was just probably people hanging outside of grocery stores handing you things to like, oh, sign up for this or whatever. And so you get home and you're like, oh, you want to cruise on that thing I signed? I don't remember that, but cool. I guess I signed my name to something.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. This movie also made me really feel about how trapped you are on a cruise ship. It was shot on a real cruise ship, and you can feel that. Cruise ships are just like so claustrophobic.
Yeah, I would not choose this as a vacation.
And this movie definitely shows you how toxic a cruise would be for everybody's relationship. Yeah. Like everybody is just like awful. Like everyone's marriages are falling apart. Nobody trusts each other. It's just like it's just like a complete disaster for everybody. Yeah. Tom Bosley at one point is like, stop. You have to stop caring about our adult kids, or I'm going to divorce you. It's like, what are you even talking about?
Right. Yeah. Stop
caring about our kids.
Yeah.
I've always had a hard time seeing the appeal of a cruise.
Yeah.
So this deception gets everybody onto the cruise, but there's also deception within the scheme to murder these people.
Yeah.
As there always is. That's the problem when you get mixed up in deception, is like there's always the chance that deception comes back on you. And that's exactly what happens here. In a way, like a lot of these deception movies involve a twist or something at the end. This is no exception.
Yeah.
And I don't want to give it away, but yeah, there is a deception within the ranks of the deception scheme.
Yeah. I don't know that it's terribly difficult to figure out who might be behind these murders early on-ish, but it doesn't matter. You're still along for the ride, and the mystery surrounding why these people are there, and the fact that a certain central character may recognize them from somewhere in the past,
right,
is thought-provoking.
It makes you think like, oh, maybe there is a little something to this story. And then as you get on, you're like, okay, maybe that doesn't matter as much.
Right.
But yeah, again, this is a 75-minute TV movie from the 70s. If this movie was 84 minutes, that probably wouldn't be it wouldn't work. 75 minutes is just enough time.
Yeah.
If this was 84, you're like, okay, I get it. Like, let's wrap this up. There aren't a lot of Letterboxd reviews for this one, so I didn't really find any shareable reviews that matched my 3-star rating. But Doom DeLuise did post some trivia in his review that this was called Anchors a Sleigh in the UK.
Anchors a Sleigh?
Anchors a Sleigh.
Wow.
So there aren't enough ratings on Letterboxd for this to have an average.
Okay.
But 44 people, which is 30% of the people who rated this movie, agree with my 3-star rating.
Gotcha.
So this is a fun little short TV movie that you can pick up here at the store or catch on YouTube pretty easily. And I'm putting it on the shelf this week for Deception.
Good choice. You always pick some unexpected films, and this is indeed one of them. So I was happy to watch this. It was fun.
Yeah. Low stakes.
Low stakes.
Do you have some laundry to do? Throw this on YouTube.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm keeping us in the 90s. I know we just left to take a death cruise, but we were there earlier. I'm going back. 94 is the year. The film is Shallow Grave, and we're going to the Dig Deep section of the store.
Nice.
Back of the box synopsis. When accountant David, Dr. Juliet, and journalist Alex are searching for a 4th roommate for their trendy flat, they settle on the aloof Hugo, However, they soon find Hugo dead of a drug overdose beside a large sum of cash. After some deliberation, the three decide to keep the money and to dismember and bury Hugo's body. Soon, each roommate starts thinking about keeping all the money by scamming the others. Tagline, this is a curious one. The award-winning thriller that'll bury you with laughs.
That is from the wrong movie.
It is from the wrong movie.
The wrong movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Holy shit.
I don't know what awards this won, and I don't know if I was buried in laughter, but...
Is this... I mean, it had a couple...
It had some
chuckles.
Lines, I probably laughed harder at the tagline than I did anything that happened in the movie.
Yeah, that was the hardest I've laughed in a week.
Yeah. So with my first film, we had Edward Norton making his film debut. With Shallow Grave, we have Danny Boyle's directorial debut. We all know him from Trainspotting, 127 Hours, 28 Days Later, and other films with numbers in the title like T2, Trainspotting. Much like Trainspotting, we get Ewan McGregor here. He's alongside Kerry Fox and Christopher Eccleston. Rob, did you notice that one of the movies that McGregor is watching on TV in this film is The Wicker Man?
I did.
Yeah. I didn't notice that the first few times that I'd seen this when I was younger, but I certainly picked up on it.
I haven't seen this movie since probably the 90s.
Yeah.
Maybe early 2000s.
Right.
So, which at that point I had never heard of The Wicker Man.
Right. But here it is.
Yeah. Maybe, do you think maybe he had heard of the staff recommendation shelf?
Perhaps.
Through a time warp?
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me at all.
Like most film debuts, this was shot for next to nothing. I think the budget was like $1 million. And when production ran low on cash, they literally auctioned props from the film in order to buy film stock to finish making the movie. So like shoestring budget in the truest sense of the term. Boyle, however, knows how to direct a movie. I mean, these actors know how to act, and with a great script by John Hodge, who also wrote Trainspotting, you end up with a pretty terrific film. So why did I choose this? The deception we get here happens between these three characters who have stolen their roommate's money and buried his body. As the situation gets increasingly tense and authorities as well as some other unsavory characters start poking around, each of the three roommates start turning on one another privately, publicly. They start hiding things. Their bond breaks down. Things go to shit.
Yeah.
This is another film where it's definitely better to not spoil the ending, but I like the fact that the deception here is three-pronged, because it's not just one person being lied to or deceived. It's three people lying to each other, and naturally that ups the stakes, and you know, you end up wondering who's going to kind of prevail here and what is going to ultimately happen.
When I hadn't seen this movie in decades, right?
Yeah.
And so I probably hadn't seen it since I was in my 20s. And all these characters are in their 20s. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it struck me at the time. I mean, I think a little bit, but I don't think it really struck me at the time what assholes these people are.
Oh God,
they're fucking dicks. Assholes.
Yeah.
And like the worst assholes in the world. And like being the biggest asshole, you know, is how you prevail in this movie. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I had forgotten, like, what fucking dickheads these people are.
Yeah, they belong together because they are all awful people.
Like what they're doing when they're interviewing their roommates at the beginning, you're just like, fuck these people.
Yeah, and all of this could have been avoided had they just like chosen to rent out their flat to the dorky redheaded kid who they were particularly rude to, but
for no reason.
Yeah, for no reason.
Why are they doing that? Why are they wasting their own time for first of all? But
they thought really highly of themselves and just didn't seem to think that anyone else that they interviewed quite made the cut.
Yeah, I mean your apartment's all right.
Yeah,
you know, like what are you like? Big. I don't get it. Yeah,
just weirdly decorated and kind of old. Yeah, and you'd have to live with these three assholes. I think so. Yeah.
You're from fucking Scotland. Come on, you're not in fucking London.
Yeah, these three are dicks.
Yeah, the worst.
And I think that works for the movie because you don't feel like you're necessarily rooting for any one of them.
No.
And they're all making some poor decisions, but yeah, it keeps you connected till the very end in order to see.
They're making terrible decisions.
They are.
Why are they chopping this guy up for one thing?
I don't know.
Like when I first when you first are like, okay, they're gonna chop him up, because I was thinking they have to get him out of the apartment with nobody seeing them carrying a body, right?
Right.
So they're like, well, we got to chop him up, and that's all they can think of. But that's no, they carry a fucking body out of their apartment.
Yeah.
Make
a ton of noise.
Make a ton of noise. Just not even like wrap him up in a carpet. They just like put a garbage bag around him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well then, okay, at that point, it's just like, why are you taking the time to like saw this guy into pieces? Just bury him somewhere.
Yeah.
You're not really helping. It doesn't do anything to chop him into pieces.
I was also puzzled by the fact that Christopher Eccleston's character goes off the deep end a little bit. He decides to like seclude himself into the attic of this apartment and turns to spying on everybody by drilling holes into the ceiling. And yet, when the authorities come to question these people, nobody's looking up and being like, why is the ceiling perforated? Like, but all that's neither here nor there. It's still a fun story, and I think worth checking out.
Oh yeah, just because we're rooting against all these characters doesn't mean it's not fun to watch.
Yeah, I think that one thing I do like about this, and the tagline, for as faulty as it is, teases us a little bit, is that it is somewhat genre bending. There are moments where it's funny, it's tense, it's dramatic, it's a little bit surprising. And yeah, several genres at play here. Somehow they all work. This picture earned its way into the Criterion Collection. While it didn't do as well in America as it did in Britain, critics were still pretty fond of it. Caroline Westbrook of Empire said, "This, the debut feature from acclaimed TV director Danny Boyle, is the best British thriller in years, a chilling and claustrophobic heartstopper centering on the most moral dilemma destined to fuel many a dinner party conversation." I don't know that I would talk about. I mean, I guess what she's getting at is, what would you do if your new roommate died and there was a fucking suitcase full of cash just sitting by his body?
I mean, I of course you think about that when you watch this movie. But like, the one thing I wouldn't do is what they did.
Right.
They make just horrible decisions. Yeah. You could take the money and then call the police.
Absolutely.
You could. First thing I thought was like, okay, that seems dangerous, right? Because you don't know where this money came from. Right. Okay, so you call the police, you take a handful of money and stash it in the ceiling somewhere.
Right.
And you're like, hey, we found this. So like, there's a police report that says like this money isn't here,
Yeah.
Or whatever. Like, I understand why it's dangerous to keep it all, but like, you can take a handful. Yeah.
You can do anything other than what they did.
Yeah, even if you don't want to call the police, you can get rid of this body without chopping it to pieces and driving your roommate insane. Mm-hmm. There's just so many better ways to do this.
Yep. Series of bad decisions.
Yeah. So they're assholes and they're stupid.
Yeah. Dumb assholes is the worst kind of asshole.
But they don't realize they're dumb.
Right.
That that's their downfall. Is they're such assholes. They think they have shit figured out.
Yeah.
But they're stupid.
I could not agree more. This averages a 3.8 on Letterboxd, which is a hair lower than my 4-star review. The user Amaya agrees with me, and in her review she says, "Realizing my favorite kind of conflict in movies are those that could easily be resolved by a threesome." Which, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Rob, the truth is that we are now done deceiving our customers. And the 6 films...
Sure we are.
The 6 films that we chose for our theme of deception are How to Blow Up a Pipeline, Primal Fear, Red Rock West, Aliens, Death Cruise, and Shallow Grave.
If you like websites, go to rewindvideopod.com, where you can drop us a line, get on our mailing list, or find us on social media.
Yep. Hit us up. Next time, we revisit a theme from our first season. We're going back to school.
This is our first time revisiting a theme.
It is. And it's not that we've run out. It's just that we like some of them so much we couldn't help but to go back and do it again, right?
Double dip.
Yeah, absolutely. Tune in to find out what back-to-school movies we've chosen. As usual, we'll have 6 films to recommend. In the meantime, Feel free to stop by the counter for a movie to watch, and we will see you next time.
Be kind, recommend.